With the future health and the resources of our planet hanging in the balance, Nikki shares why it's so important to encourage our children to love the planet before we can ask them to save it. You know, Nikki, some of my fondest childhood memories are of swinging on a tree or rolling down a hill. But children of today really grow up differently. Why is that?
In the States, there's this mantra of no child left behind in the education system, but we need a new mantra for all our children in the world of no child left inside, because what kids are saying to us is that they would prefer to be indoors where all the plug points are to charge their devices than to be outside.
And what is nature deficit disorder?
Tenji, nature deficit disorder is a term coined by a guy called Richard Love, who wrote a book called Last Child in the Woods. And it is about these children who are living in a world in one room, where everything takes place around the indoor family media center. They're interacting with the world very virtually via pictures. Some of it might be live streaming, but they're not actually getting a three-dimensional experience of the world. And that's what children need in order for the world to have meaning for them. They need to interact with the world physically. So in order for our children to save this planet, they need to learn to love it first, which means first interacting with it, having a personal experience with nature. Many parents are not exposing their children to nature because it's much easier to keep them in a car seat, a baby carrier, a pram, where they can control their movement. They put these babies on the grass for the first time and they scream in pain and shock because of the feel of the grass beneath their feet. Now, we want our kids to be familiar with nature.
And as they grow up, how can nature deficit disorder be to the detriment of our children?
Tenji, we are seeing an increase in obesity, anxiety, depression in children. And while those things may have other causes, children not being attached to nature, to natural rhythms, this could be one of the contributing factors. So, you know, children experiencing the flow of a stream, the feel of the wind on their skin, those natural rhythms of nature are so important to keep us in balance. Otherwise, we just hectic, frenetic, and dealing with all those light rays bombarding us from a screen. That's not nature. And we're asking them to save the rainforests and save the rhinos. Well, what does it really mean to them?
How can parents really encourage their children to embrace nature?
There are nature reserves on your doorstep. There are parks. It's actually about making the time, being determined to get your kids out so that their world is a three-dimensional experience and not just against a flat screen.
How can these excursions be to the benefits of both the parents and the child?
Tenji, you have really struck a nerve here because everybody, every family wants these togetherness experiences. How do we create togetherness opportunities with our children? And being in nature is one of those things. And then you can use them as amazing teachable moments afterwards. And then you can start reliving the experiences with nature by playing games in the car. So say you've been to the zoo or the game reserve. On your way back in the car, you can start saying, we went to the game reserve and we saw, and the first child will say, a lion. Then the next child says, we went to the game reserve and we saw a lion and an impala. And then mum and dad get a chance to add in what they saw. So you create really warm, fuzzy connection memories based on nature, which is really awesome. And nature really does start right on our doorstep.
Perhaps what your family needs is a breath of fresh air. Literally, get outside with your kids and start to nurture the joy and love of nature.